My Aunt Olive has been on my mind a lot lately, and in light of everything that's going on in our world, I think she's been very present. Olive was an amazing woman. She wasn't actually my aunt. She was a great-grandmother, and she really didn't like the weight that came with the title great-grandma. So she asked us to call her Aunt Olive instead. So we all just grew up calling her Aunt Olive. I loved going to her house and spending time there. We would go visit her fairly frequently. Well, to a kid, it was fairly frequently. It might have not been as often as I thought, but I enjoyed going and seeing her. And as a kid, we would eat the raspberries and the blackberries that were so abundant on the bushes that lined her driveway. She had apple trees, and I want to say she had peach trees too. So it was just this feast, and we just got to go and enjoy and eat. And then we would go inside, and there was often a puzzle going on. And I really enjoyed doing puzzles with Aunt Olive. She would make us kids laugh. There were 5 of us together, and we would go visit, and she would often be set in this, she was confined to a wheelchair, and she would be set at a card table, and she would have a puzzle in front of her. And it would never fail that when we arrived, we would go and we would look at the puzzle, and there would be pieces that weren't quite in the right spot. And we would very deftly kind of take one piece and move it into its proper space, and take another one and help her out a little bit. And on occasion, she would try a piece here and a piece there. And eventually she would just kind of set it down and then pound it into space because she just wanted that piece to work where it belonged. I think she enjoyed puzzles. She really enjoyed the gentler, easier ones. And when it came to a harder one, she really enjoyed and was grateful for that assistance to move on to the next one. The first time that I really remember spending time with Aunt Olive was we were taking her for a ride, and they wheeled her out of her house, and there was this lacquered board, and we would put it under her leg, and she would slide across the board into the back seat of the car. And then we would go for a drive, and we would come back, and she would do the same thing. And she really wanted to maintain that independence as long as she could. And she had this pair of nylons that was strapped to the back of her wheelchair, and she would grab that, and then she would punch out, and that was her daily exercise to try to keep that strength up so that she could push herself around in her own wheelchair, so that she could slide across the board and go for a drive. And Olive was amazing because she never complained. She had polio at a young age, which is what eventually took away the ability to function with her legs. So as she just declined in age, her legs became weaker and weaker, and that's how she ended up in the wheelchair. And she just was a positive, unique woman. One day I was in church, and we had this lesson about sitting with our elders and learning what they had to share with us and documenting their knowledge and the history of the past. And the best way to do that was just to sit with them and talk, sit and chat. So I decided that I wanted to do this with Aunt Olive because she was just this inspiring, unique woman in my life, and I wanted to know a little bit more about her. So I took a notepad and I took a pen, and I went over to visit Aunt Olive, and she didn't get out of bed that day. She was still in bed, and there was a chair next to her bed. So I went in and gave her a hug and a kiss and sat down next to her, pen and pad just ready to go, and started asking her some questions. And she would stare out the window. She just liked the view, and it was a good view because you could see the blackberry and raspberry bushes, and you could see the apple trees. And this particular day, it had snowed the night before, so everything was covered in this blanket. And on the one hand, it was absolutely beautiful, and on the other hand, you know, it's winter, so some of the trees didn't have leaves, and some of the trees looked a little bit cold. So I'm sitting there and I'm taking notes, and I'm asking her questions. And after one of the questions, she just kind of went really quiet, and she was staring out the window, and I just sat there respectfully, waiting. And eventually I just checked in with her, and I said, "Hey, Aunt Olive, are you okay?" And she said, "It's just so pretty." And I looked out the window and all I could see was this barren apple tree that was shivering cold, no leaves, and it had like an inch of snow on its branches, just kind of hanging out right outside her window. And I said, what, that tree without any leaves? It's just naked. And she said, no, look beyond. And this is a lesson that comes to me this day. It has been a lesson that has come to me and carried me throughout my life. And I will always remember it. I will always cherish it. And I'm so excited to share it with you right now. She said, no, not that one. Look beyond. So I looked out the window at where she was looking and what she was focused on. And through this barren tree that was so much closer, you could see this majestic evergreen. And this tree was huge. It was, like Times Square worthy, because it was just big and full and bushy, and just the green that had this beautiful kiss of snow on it. And the contrast was such a feast for the eyes. And I just looked at that and I thought, wow, that is so cool. Look beyond. What you see right here may not be pretty, but there's something beyond. There's some beauty that can come out of it. I'm also reminded of a movie called Pollyanna and the Pollyanna attitude, just finding silver linings and positivity everywhere you can. If you haven't seen it and don't know the reference, maybe go look at it. Pollyanna is the name of it. Aunt Olive had every reason to complain. Aunt Olive, stuck in a wheelchair, couldn't do things on her own, was left to somebody else taking care of her. She couldn't go and do, she couldn't run, she couldn't, there was so much she could not do and could not be. And yet I never once heard her complain. And sitting there that day, not feeling well enough to get out of bed, wanting to just stay there, she sees this absolute beauty in this evergreen outside through this other tree that could have been as far as she wanted to look. So I hope that you can find inspiration in my Aunt Olive too. I hope that you can look beyond and see the beauty. I pray that we can all heal. My hope is that we can overcome this divided mentality. My hope is that this chasm of race, religion, gender, political preference, that I hope and pray that we can fill in this chasm with compassion and understanding, that we can build bridges of peace and hope so that we can move past it. I truly pray that we can all come together and alleviate the fears and encourage harmony together as a human race living on this planet together.